We've had a lot of internet issues this morning, so we apologize if something weird happens with our sound. It gets kind of lonely when you're a single parent, and
Good transition. That was so.
that's my transition.
It's really smooth.
Gets kind of lonely
Here, look.
when you are a single
I'm
parent.
going to rewrite for you. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, you're emotionally tired. Do you have anyone you can share that with? And I'll say, not really. I feel so alone. And now you say,
Well, then maybe. Wait, what am I supposed to say? Right.
It's really lonely as a single parent.
It gets really lonely as a single parent.
Yes, it does.
Especially when you don't have someone else to write your lines for you.
That's true. That is very true.
That's the best part about being married is someone else can tell you what to say.
You can just, yep. When you get in too deep, you just like look at them and they can take over.
Oh man, we're a little loopy today. I apologize in advance, but today we decided we wanted to talk about loneliness, and I don't think it's such a crazy time to talk about it, considering it seems to be. I'm reading more and more about it.
Yeah.
And it really struck home with me. And so yeah, this is something I thought I would bring. And the minute I said it to you, Lily, you're like, yep. Like, no problem talking about this one.
I love being alone too. And so it's not that like, I don't like being alone and I need to be coupled. It's just like an existential loneliness that comes with doing this work alone.
We're going to start the show and then we'll get into it.
I'm Lily, single mom to teen twins.
Father! I'm recording in here!
And I'm Scott, single dad to a preteen boy. Dad! It's under the sink!
We're two old friends trying to navigate single parenting.
And spending the whole time thinking, I hope I don't fuck this up. All right, so before we start talking about loneliness, before we just get all chipper and excited and talking about loneliness in a fun way, we're going to talk about our parenting fails of the week. Before we get into these, I want to do a little disclaimer from last week's fail of the week.
Okay. What was
so this
I don't
is
even
so
remember. I'm so beyond it. I'm so forgiven and feel I've forgiven you so. I don't remember what it was.
Well, last week I talked about how I was driving my son home from staying with my mom.
Yeah.
And he smelled. And I wanted him to take a shower. But I also needed to take a shower.
Yes.
So I told him I was going to take a shower first. He'd take a shower second. He didn't like it. He wanted to take a shower first. We're arguing back and forth.
Yeah.
And then finally I got mad and I exploded and I said, you stink. And he got mad. So what's interesting is I tell that story and I left something very important out.
What was
and
also stunk?
Well, no. Well, I left something embarrassing out.
Okay.
Embarrassing to me.
Okay.
And then I was talking to my therapist later and they are like, why did you leave that out? Because that's actually the part of the story that I think is most relatable to people.
Interesting.
And I'm like, well, I think I left it out because I was embarrassed by it and a little ashamed of it.
Yes. Let's not sanitize this.
Yeah, I was sanitizing it. And I wanted everybody out there to like me. So here it is. I'm going to share the bit that I'm ashamed of.
Okay.
The bit I was ashamed of was I told him he stinks. He didn't immediately start crying or anything. We got to the house and he ran in and I went in and I started telling him to do things and he was ignoring me. He didn't say anything. I'm like, could you check this? Can you do that? Nothing.
Yeah.
And I just lost it. And I got right up in his face and I said, listen to me when I talk to you. And I didn't hit him or do anything physical to him, but I had that energy. I don't know if you know that violent energy. And so I went right at him and like right up into his face. And then he ran upstairs and I followed him and we talked through it and we were fine after that.
Yeah.
But I was ashamed of the energy. I was ashamed that I had that. And so I didn't share that part that I like I got right up in his face. Like,
yeah,
it was way too much. And so that I was ashamed of that. I didn't share it. And so I'm sharing it now. And if you guys are going to judge me for it, you judge me for it, but
let them judge you. But I will say this. It's very brave of you to correct a wrong. And the wrong was not revealing that part of it. And I'm proud of you for doing that. And I hope that what you learn from that is that you want to be better. That's it. You want to do better in the situation. And that's like not to therapize you too much, but like every single parent I know has done this and has felt immediate, like either if it's not immediate, it's like may give it 30 minutes, like shame about the way that they just behaved. And I think it's super relatable. I've done the same thing myself. I did it way more when my kids were younger because everything was so irrational that it instigated my own irrationality at a time when I needed to be irrational, and it was not. It's not easy, dude. It's not easy.
No. I just hate that energy. I hate when I get to that point where
you use your power.
Because I know what but I also, and the thing is, the thing I'm most ashamed of is that I knew what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I brought the energy to him because I wanted him to do what I wanted him to do.
Yeah, intimidate.
So it wasn't even uncontrolled per se. It was on purpose.
It's not that it wasn't uncontrolled. It's if you had time to choose how you would want to behave in that situation, you would. But like there was all of the other things, life was happening at the same in that moment.
Yeah. Oh, God. And he had a Lego in front of him and I almost crushed it with my foot. I just wanted to crush it, but I didn't.
Because I wouldn't forgive you for ruining a Lego.
No, I wouldn't forgive myself either because I took my shoes off where I got in the house. It would have gone right up my heel.
Well, do you want to know my parenting fail of the week so that you feel better about being a shit parent yourself?
Yes. Tell me, please.
So I think I talked last week too about like yelling at my daughter. So whatever. This is normal. We're all normal. I'm not a gentle parent. I'm sorry. My son, being a teenager, is like pushing all the boundaries. He wants to be an adult. Like he's trying to live like an adult without any of the responsibilities of being an adult, which is like typical teenage behavior. Like that's what happens.
Yeah.
He's been told that he's not allowed to sleep over at his girlfriend's house, which he asked. And this weekend they're at their dad's house. And I woke up. Side story, last weekend my daughter's phone got stolen. I keep tracking the stolen phone because I'm so mad about it still. So I like where the phone is now. Like I do my find my phone, make sure that, and this is maybe a little bit crazy too, but I make sure my kids are at their dad's house where I know they are safe and etc. And
you're a parent. There's nothing crazy about knowing where your kids are.
Stalker,
there used to be a whole PSA about it.
I know. So my son, I see his little phone on the Find My is at the address of his girlfriend's house in the morning. And my son is not a morning person. So I got super angry and I texted his dad. I was like, dude, did you let him stay at the girlfriend's house? And he's like, what? I had to leave early. I went to sleep early. I was like, so you don't know if the kid came home or not? He's like, well, we were talking yesterday. I knew where he was. And I was like, this is a big problem. And he's like, well, I'm doing things right now. Can we talk later? And I texted the boy. I was like, did you sleep at the girlfriend's house? And I got no response at first. And then I got
of course.
And I responded back, I'm going to need an answer.
Well, he's busy, shitting himself in the bathroom right now. He's like, give me a second. I need to clean the colon out before I deal with you, Mom. Because I just caught your voice for a second there, and you have a frightening voice when you're mad. See, that is a frightening voice.
Are you where you say you are going to be? And I caught you in a live voice.
Yeah, our entire audience just stood up straighter like when you were saying that.
So his one word response, which I give him credit for choosing to respond, was yes. And so like immediately I call him, he doesn't answer. I call him and call him like a psycho. And he finally does answer. And because I said, it's like, if you don't pick up the phone so we can talk about this right now, I'm getting in the car and I'm driving to her house and we can all have a conversation over.
Ooh, wow.
And so like we're talking, like he's yelling at me that I don't understand, that I just want him to not grow up. And I was like, no. It's just like one rule that you have. I cannot fucking wait for you to grow up, dude. I'm done. So I cannot wait. Whew, I'll charge you rent and everything. It'll be wonderful. But he was yelling. He's like, well, the reason that I don't ask you, I don't know what the rules are at your house and your dad's house, which his dad and I talk about things beforehand so that we make sure the rules are the same. And I was like, well, and I relayed that to him. And he said, well, he understands, like, if things happen and the train doesn't come. I was like, dude, this is not about, he understands. Like, you know that you can get away with things at his house and you can't get away with things at my house. And you've got one parent. So like the real fail here is that I told him he only had one grown-up parent, essentially. And it was me. I was like, your dad never wants you to be angry at him. He never has any consequences for your actions. There's a very good reason he doesn't get angry when you don't do the thing. And I was just like, I really try hard. And I want to put this disclaimer on my own. I can trash talk my ex. He's a wonderful, involved father, and there are many very good things about him. Nobody else gets to trash talk him. So whatever. Like when I called and asked him, did you know where your kids are? Like that's only for me to trash talk, even though it's wildly understandable that nobody in their right mind would ever think that that wasn't a big deal if you knew your kid came home or not. So sidebar over. I don't feel totally bad, because like they're old enough now to know.
I know. I'm like, where's the forgiveness part of it?
I mean, I think one of the things I try really hard to do is not trash talk their dad, but I also try really hard not to like hide my real feelings and emotions from them. That those two things are often in conflict about, I'm not trying to make him seem like a bad person, but like, dude, I know why you don't get in trouble there. It's because like, he thinks it's fine. It's not a big deal. Somebody does think it's a big deal, and it's only me.
It's so hard not to trash talk the other parent when the other parent is not holding up their end of the bargain.
Yes.
And
yes.
But the problem is always it's like the kids can sense that and they play that like a flute, like a fiddle. You play like a fiddle, not like a flute.
Yeah.
You play like a cello. They play you like a double bass, and it's so hard not to slip up and occasionally let out that, because it's not just about you talking about, it's not about how they're playing the situation. It's about the fact that why isn't your ex acting this way? Why isn't your ex acting the way they're supposed to act? And so the frustration is real. It just went to the wrong person.
Well, I did call his dad back after and was like, this is serious. He's like, I feel like you're overreacting about this. And I was like,
No, you were not overreacting.
No, and I had to tell him, like, listen, I need to be able to trust when the kids are there for the 4 days out of the month that the 26 days of work that I do isn't getting ruined in 4 days.
Well, and you're in the middle. I mean, you're in the middle of the city. Let's not underplay that. Like, there's a big difference between, the kids out in the suburbs or out wherever, like sending out overnight. Where are they going to be?
Yeah.
They're going to be standing around a keg in the middle of the woods.
Yeah.
That's where they'll be, which is sure not the best, but it's not like the millions of things that can go wrong inside of a city overnight.
Totally.
So and you're combating the fact that they feel more self-actualized because they've been running around the city their whole life.
Yes.
So they feel they understand it and they know it and they're not worried about it.
Of course.
You remember what you did in your 20s.
I remember getting like harassed. Like I remember feeling fear walking alone late at night when somebody's behind me. And like when you're 17, when you're a 17-year-old boy, you don't feel any of that. Like you are invincible. And
it is dangerous even for a 17-year-old boy.
Yeah,
it is dangerous.
It is, especially a threatening one. His mind does not look threatening at all.
Well, nothing to forgive for most of this. The only thing I do forgive, because I've done it myself. Yeah. The accidental slip up of talking trash about
it wasn't accidental. It's all very purposeful. Go on, I still accept your forgiveness.
Okay, fine. It wasn't accidental, but it is the hardest thing because my ex does it with me a decent amount, and I try not to do it with her, but I think I do, and it is something that they really sop up, and so that's the bit. I forgive you. We all do it. Well, so we got that off our chest. Time to talk about how it feels as a single parent, because as the emotions that we go through, there's so many, but one that I keep coming back to, and one that almost buried me, to be honest. Especially in the early years of it, was that feeling of loneliness of like, it's your support system is not as strong as it should be. I think for most single parents, it's just your parents can only do so much. Your ex can only do so much. And then you and I think both had a decent amount of, I mean, I have almost full time, and I know you have a lot of time with your kids, and it doesn't leave you a lot of time to go out and meet people and feel like an adult and feel like there's a future beyond being a parent for you.
And for me, like there's the extra burden because mine are so close to like leaving the house. I don't actually want to bring somebody in to upset that last year or to like, I mean, there's just like a lot of emotional baggage that goes with introducing a new person into your family that I don't want to put on them. So that means like I'm choosing them over my own relationships just for the time being, you know?
Yeah. Well, we use the word loneliness, and yet for me, loneliness was the wrong word. I felt trapped. It was this sense of being trapped because you're trapped by this responsibility.
Yeah.
And, you know, you have a better relationship with your ex than I do. But a lot of times once you start splitting duties, the sort of sense that someone has your back when it's your time goes away. And suddenly I couldn't date. I couldn't even go anywhere.
Yeah.
Like I had to find somebody for me to go to a doctor's appointment. You know, he had to follow me everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, and I think there are a lot of single parents like that, where it's just like, you don't have any outs.
Yeah.
Like you're a parent all the time.
I think I agree that like loneliness isn't quite the right word. And it's more like aloneness. Like you are in this alone. I'm sorry, I'm going to get emotional. Like that is one of the things that like, as like my son and I are yelling at each other on the phone yesterday, I was like, dude, it's really hard to do this alone. Really hard. And I work really hard. And that's, I think, more it than anything. Like when you're married and doing with kids together, like if you need to tap out or call in a team member, or at least like you're in the house having the same, like you can contact each other's eyes when you be like, dude, don't say that. Nope. Like that's not the way we're going to go. Like, or, you know, I remember times when he's like, would put like his hand on my shoulder and be like, why don't you go to the bedroom for a little bit and take a minute? And it's like, yeah, great. You take over, finish cooking dinner when somebody just like threw their glass on the ground and like knocked it over, and you've got to now clean up and get the dinner on the table and homework. Like it's nice having somebody who can be your partner in raising kids because it's too much. It's too much.
It's so hard. And I think for me, the biggest shift was you go from a wife that supports you to an ex that's looking for the thing you did wrong. It's not even that I'm alone and trying to deal with this situation. Like my son had panic attacks. You know, it's difficult. And he was having these panic attacks and realizing that I'm kind of alone in having to deal with this panic attack, because if I go out and I involve his mom immediately, the first question is, what did you do? You know, and
that's rough.
You know, and it's not even, I don't even falter for that. I would probably think the same thing. You know, there's like just a sense of helplessness when you're not there. But it definitely makes me feel even more alone in dealing with a situation that I'm really don't even really know how to handle. It's not, you're not set up for success, you know, in that scenario.
Well, and also like, I mean, let's call out like the fact here that you are a man raising a boy child, and neither of those things, boy or man, are incredibly adept emotionally. And like they're it's just true. Like they're, you know, I mean, little boys obviously like are full of emotion and can express their emotion in a way that men can't. And like somehow along the way you lose that ability. Or it gets like trained out of you or whatever it is. But like there's a significant amount of like emotional work that is done in parenting that I think for a lot of men, and correct me if I'm wrong here, for a lot of men feels really uncomfortable, like super uncomfortable to be able to like hold your kid when they're crying, or just understand that like they're not trying to do anything to like get you mad, but like this is how they're expressing, like whatever, like all the mom touchy-feely things that can't be easy to deal with as a solo dad.
I am not from a particularly touchy-feely family, and like we're just not touchy-feely. And so I find that hugging my kid is a lot more about wrestling than it is about just normal, regular hugging.
Yeah.
And I try to hug him all the time because I'm there all the time. And it's almost like what he wants. He doesn't want that from me either. Like he wants the hugging.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There's a maternal figure.
Yep. But he doesn't have that because he's not with his mom a lot.
Yeah.
So like that's a big void in him too, I'm sure.
I know. We're going into so many. We're going to figure all this out today.
We are. Shit. I didn't know we were gonna
well, my hope is. Well, here we're going to veer it back because it's funny when you tap into something like this. It's run such through the core of being a single parent that it's so difficult to not have it touch upon every little thing that we deal with every single day.
None of like the things that we're dealing with are single serving topics. Like parenting is a web of, interconnected emotional live wires that you're bound to run into at any given time.
No, it's so true. It's like, and so if we're talking about this today and try to also help people that out there are feeling like this today. Yeah. I think it might be helpful for us to talk about is there anything we did that helped us turn a corner around these feelings?
I'm going to be the Jekyll to your Hyde and say that I think that the help is knowing you're not alone, that we are all feeling that. But like for me, it might not be healthy. Like my idea of what is helpful is not healthy because I have felt extremely alone this weekend in particular. And what I normally advocate is like reach out to a friend. I did that twice and I got rebuffed. Not like, and because like on text, I'm not going to be like, hey, this really shitty thing happened and I need you. That is my own fault for not being able to do that. But what I'm like, hey, let's go get a coffee. Hey, you want to go try to meet up this weekend? And like, not put this huge weight on them that like, I need you. Maybe I should.
Well, I would argue that we do this to ourselves and that we cut ourselves off because we somehow feel that our problems are burdens on our friends.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
And when you're in a relationship, you're able, you have someone whose job it is, via the rules of the relationship to, for you to be able to text them and for them to give you the time that you need. And when you don't have that, especially as a single parent, usually what do you have? You have a parent, one of your parents, hopefully. I mean, that's why I think it was so much harder for me when I lost my dad earlier this year, because that was one of the people that I'd be able to call. And you don't get as many when you're a single parent. You don't get as many phone a friends. Really. Yeah. And the other thing is that this isn't true of everyone, but at least it is for me. And it sounds like it is for you. It's like this idea of being an imposition on our friends' lives runs counter to what a really strong friendship actually is. A really strong friendship is a constant imposition that is welcomed. It's a welcomed imposition. I never feel better than when I'm able to listen to a friend and give them some advice. Like that's when I feel best.
That's sweet.
And I find my friends don't reach out enough to me about that stuff, and I don't reach out enough to them. But when I do, and we impose on each other, we feel better and we feel more connected. And so it's like, it's almost like less about, are they going to want to hear from me or this and that? And more just about this sense, like we don't want to impose on people. And
it's like, it feels super vulnerable. Like, I mean, not that everybody thinks anybody else is a perfect parent or does everything right in their lives. But like what you're admitting is like, I'm not good at this right now, right now. Yeah. Like I'm admitting, I mean, again, maybe it's just us, maybe we're the problem, but admitting.
I don't think so.
But being brave enough to admit like, I need something has always been a problem of mine. And like, I'm not even an oldest daughter or anything. Like that's always been
all that birth order bullshit.
Well, I am the youngest who always felt responsible because of my divorced parents' situation. I felt responsible for my mom from the time I was 8, and nothing's gotten better. But I actually did. So I gave up on reaching out, and I was like, fuck it. Just do what you want to do. Like, you feel shitty. So I went and got a haircut. which is something that I'd wanted to do that I hadn't taken time for myself. I walked back home from Manhattan to Brooklyn because exercise always feels.
Exercise is great.
And it was sunshiny out and it was a beautiful day. I got back to my neighborhood. I thought about going to see a movie. The timing was wrong. So like I took myself to an early dinner, sat out in the sun, had 2 glasses of wine and some steak frites, which like made me feel great. I don't mind at all eating alone in a restaurant. Like that felt good.
I don't either.
And then I came home and I watched, like I binged the rest of the Netflix series that I was watching. And like my dad, I ended up calling my dad before I binged and, you know, just checking in on him. He's 84. Like he's perfectly with it, that he's perfectly healthy. There's nothing wrong with him. And I love him. He and I have very, very similar brains. He was not a great father growing up, but he turns out to be like an incredibly good friend as an adult. And like, I'll just call him like Howard, you know, just we don't call. He only wants to FaceTime now, as I think that generation is like super into. Like they want to see you.
And we get to look up their nose. I always look up their nose. I'm like, don't you you can see yourself. You can see that I am counting every goddamn hair coming out of your nostril right now.
It's so cute.
Or like, it's like the eyes, right? Yep. Like my mom gets on the thing and it's just it's like she thinks that we're inside the computer.
But he's like, you know, because he's known me my whole entire life. I hadn't said anything about anything. And he's like, what's wrong? I was like, nothing. He's like, yes, there is. Tell me. And like, that is what you want. Like somebody who is willing to listen. And like, I feel very comfortable burdening him because he's my dad.
Yeah.
You know,
because he's your parent.
Yeah.
He's your dad.
And he wasn't burdened at all. And like the advice he gave me was totally counter to the way he acted as a parent. It was like shocking. It's just like,
My dad did that too all the time. My dad was such a smart guy. And like, he was emotionally intuitive as long as he wasn't involved. You know, and it was just funny. He always gave me great advice.
Yeah.
And it's funny now. My mom gives me advice because she's probably the main person. You know, thankfully I'm dating someone I can talk to now.
That's helpful.
Which helps. But she has a very strong opinion of my ex, so I can't always bring her into that conversation because
totally.
You know, she sees how it affects me and she turns into mama bear. And I'm like,
yeah, I get it.
Yeah, you get it. So, but my mom now gets very angry when I don't take her advice. Like, it's like, she's like, I'm giving you pearls here. I am changing your life right now. Why aren't you doing it? And I'm like, well, you know, maybe I will, maybe I won't. No, you will. And I'm like,
well, you know what I to do is like reward my dad when he gives me advice that aligns with what I was going to do. Like I'll give it, you know, ask his opinion, which is not something I've ever done my whole life. I've just always done what I thought was best, which is neither here nor there. But like now when I ask for his advice and it aligns with what I wanted to do, and then I do that, I reward him by saying like, oh, Dad, I took your advice. That was such
You know, I do that too. That is a great trick for people.
Yeah.
If you are taking people's advice, friends or parents or whoever, let them know you took it. Thank them for it, even if you were going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
The worst thing, and I have to catch myself on this all the time. Oh, I already thought of that. Or, oh, I was going to do that anyway. Let them help you. Yeah. Because it'll strengthen it. They're going to answer you quickly later when you need help because they got a dopamine rush out of it. Yeah. And it's your pride. It's your pride when you're telling people, oh, I thought of it already. Or I was going to do it already. You're just trying to win some pride game that just puts distance between you. Yeah. Yeah. When I learned that, and I think I was like, it was probably 4 years ago when I finally learned that. It made a huge difference, especially with my dad, like letting him know that I listened. Yes. He's like, I've done my job. Then he backs back into the dojo.
But after that day of like the day of me that I took after crying all morning and wearing big sunglasses to my hair appointment because I couldn't guarantee that I wasn't going to keep crying afterwards. And talking to him, like at the end of the call, he's like, oh, you feel better. And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, no, I'm still sad. He's like, no, I can tell you feel better. He wasn't wrong. Like, so it is true. Like talking to the people who, you know, might not be your partner, but like are available to you genuinely makes it feel better. Like I did feel less alone. It was nice hearing his experience of like, you know, he ran into stuff like this with my brother and my cousins who lived with us my dad is Iranian and they have conscription. And when my male cousins, before they turned 18, they were sent to the States to live with us. So they didn't have to go into the army. Side note. So like my male cousins lived with us too. So my dad has dealt with a lot of teenage boys, and not always to the best effect, but like he's learned from the mistakes he's made, and I feel like has thought probably a lot about what he wish he would have done differently. And like hearing that was actually useful.
I love that you were able to end your day that way. I wish you could have done it earlier, so that you didn't have to feel like that all day long.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than like, sobbing when you're getting your hair cut so you get a jagged line. I mean, you really got to stay calm when they're doing, especially this.
We'll do another episode on the absolute ass fuckery it is that women go through perimenopause at the same time that they have teenagers, because that is a cruel joke. But that can be for
that all right. That we'll get back to that. We have a whole perimenopause
side note. Hormonal, when any of that stuff is
oh yeah,
to like exacerbate your feelings of loneliness or feelings of like not being able to deal. But my okay, so that's what I did. I gave myself a day of me, and I talked to my dad finally, tried it for some friends who were not so responsive, and gave short texts to people who I was like, no, I can't talk to you. What is your...
I mean, look, you also, you didn't quite give your friends a chance to come to the rescue.
I didn't. I did not. Yeah. And that is totally my fault. That is totally my fault. And like, I can't be mad, the same thing. But I am a little.
Well, it's weird because you're like, couldn't you sense it? Like, you're my friend. Couldn't you sense I was in need and drop everything? What's I find interesting, because when I went through this, I think everybody goes through this point in single parenting, especially, I mean, it was harder early on, but I would say it's not even early on. It's just I'm dating now. When I wasn't dating, it was harder. But you go through that sense of like, you just don't want anybody to know that you're messing up. But to your point, even emotionally, that you're not up to the task. And what I found having issue with was my closest friends are all married. It's hard for me to reach out to people knowing that I'm their second choice. So it's like, because they're married. So when they're in trouble, they go to their spouse, and that's and they don't come to me in that. There are times they do, but most of the time I'm not the first call. And yet they're my first call. And there's a power imbalance there that I have to sort of just come to grips with, that I like feeling that other people need me as much as I need them. And it's hard to feel that other people don't need me as much as I need them. That feels like an imbalance. And so that gets in the way sometimes of me reaching out when I need it, because I'm like, well, they didn't reach out to me when they needed it. So me reaching out to them feels like imbalance.
Maybe that is a thing that's only in your head, that power.
Yeah, that might be. That might be.
But there's also,
but it might also be maybe it's a guy thing.
It may be a guy thing, but that also is like personality type. Like, people come to me all the time, which I love. Like, I love that people will come to me or tell me their problems or need something for me, and sometimes it's overwhelming. But that is like the kind of person I guess I am. Like, I am the one that people will tell all their shit to and ask for help, or like just like emotionally dump on me. I think because I'm safe. I don't know the reason, but I don't. Because the relationships are, that is the dynamic that has been set, and that I don't do the same in reverse usually. I then feel like it's not, I don't know, it's not my place, or if it feels weird. What happens is I eventually will get resentful that like I'm giving, getting nothing back, but that's all on me because I'm not asking for anything back.
Well, what's interesting is they're both all on us. Like, for me, I'm like, the reason why I think people don't reach out to me, and I think it is guys do have a harder time with this in general, and guys usually aren't the ones that like, a lot of my friends are female, and I don't think guy energy is the thing they're going for initially when they're going through something like you're going through, or like, that they want to talk. And I don't often want to call my guy friends because my guy friends give me shit advice. And they really do. Like, I have one friend that, like, the entire time I'm talking with him, and if I call him, he's like one of my oldest friends, but when I give him advice, his advice is always, fuck him. That's always his advice. You get to the end, he's from South Boston, and you get to the end, he's like, fuck him.
Sounds like I was married to him.
You might have been. And it's like, you get to the end, and it's like, well, I'm so glad I spent 15 minutes telling you this, that they're fuck them. So I call my female friends, and I don't think their first impulse is to reach out to me.
Yeah.
And so that, for me, I guess I get resentful. I want to be someone that people reach out to.
You know, I wonder if it's like totally generational too, because we were not taught to share our problems or to share our emotions or to ask for advice. And like this, like fierce independence of Gen X is, I think we're getting, bit in the ass by a lot of it. Some of it's great. Like, obviously, like, I loved having my own autonomy, but like this part of it is something that, and I feel like we've talked about this before, I'm trying to parent out of my own kids, or like not recreate the same situation, because I will tell you from my parenting fail where, like, my son and I were like yelling at each other. He screamed at the end of the fight, when I was like, well, I track where your phone is because I want to see if you're okay. And I was like, and if you're not, at least I know. I'm sorry. Hold on. A little laugh.
Wait.
At least if you're not okay, I'll know where to tell the police to look for the body.
That's what you said to him?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
I mean, it was like clearly hyperbolic. And I was so.
Can I say not fully hyperbolic?
Because I do want to know what the body is.
Because you do want to know where the body is.
People do use that.
Wow.
But what he said in return was like, "What if I just go and throw my phone in the highway and you'll never know where the body is?" And then like hung up, like said something shitty and like hung up. And I like immediately started bawling because we never really yell at each other. But can I tell you though, the good emotional thing that happened though, like the conclusion of that was I gave myself time to cry, and I didn't keep pursuing him until like keep the fight going. I gave him time, and he called me back within 5 minutes and said, "I'm so sorry. I don't mean that. I love you, and I'm sorry that I screamed at you like that." And I thought, like,
now you're gonna make me cry.
I know. And I said, like, I thanked him for calling me back. I was like really appreciative of it, and like we kept talking. I was blubbering, but like we kept talking through it throughout it. But I thought, okay, he just was such a pain in the ass, and just completely emotionally surpassed me by making that one phone call. And I think that's like part of this thing. Like we have never had the emotional wherewithal to acknowledge that I just did something stupid, make an apology for it immediately, and try to repair it on the spot. And I think that is a lot of what goes into what we're talking about and feeling lonely here is like, I'm unable to tell my own friends, I feel like shit and I need you. And like, you're unable to tell your dude friends or whoever your friends are a similar thing. And I think it's because like, we just were never taught to like feel like we deserved to have that kind of support, or that we couldn't do everything ourselves. It was a fierce, independent agenda, I think, on our generation.
Well, and I also think under that, there's also this, for me, I can't say for everybody, but for me, you have a marriage fail, there's a sense of shame around that. I don't share everything about how I feel about all of that because, most of my friends are still married. I do think there's this sense of when you're a single parent, you always have this feeling of judgment going on coming from somewhere. Like there's judgment from your ex. There's judgment that you put on yourself that you assume other people are feeling. I just think there's always a sense of judgment, and reaching out to friends is a way of opening yourself up to more judgment. And sometimes that can be hard to do. Like, it's like, I just don't want any more. And I think with Gen X especially, we have a harder time because as we're getting older, the people that we do open up to, which tend to be like our parents, even if we're only do it now that they're older, they're starting to fail us, whether it's because of their passing or because they're not mentally the way they were, or, there's just certain, they're not as firm as it used to be.
Uh-huh.
And so now we're looking around and we're like, well, who the hell do we have? And I would say that this is a clarion call for us to work on strengthening those relationships we have, because we do have them.
Yeah.
And we may not recognize it, and work on it. Like, pick those people.
Yeah.
It's like your emergency contact list.
Totally. Who's your emergency contact number? Divorce is its own episode. But
I know. but in this case, who is your emotional emergency contact list for when you feel alone?
Yeah.
Who are they?
Well,
and know who they are.
Yeah, I think that's super helpful. And like, what do you do? Because, those blue cards you fill out for your kids at school, and they always ask, like, list the emergency contact for your kid. And then if we can't get a hold of them, what do you want us to do? And I'm always like, what a fucking idiotic question. Take them to the hospital, like whatever they need, like do it. But like, I feel like I reached out to my list. I didn't get the response I wanted because I wasn't transparent enough what I needed. And then if that happens, if you've got your list together and you're not getting what you need and you don't want, like, what are you going to do then? And I think that's a super important thing to think about, or at least, to be ready with. Like, know what makes you feel good alone. Know what makes you feel good when you feel lonely.
You look at your day. It's so funny. Like, you are like talking about how you felt yesterday. I am listening to somebody who knows how to administer self-care on herself. Like, I hear someone who, because we're going to have the emotional moment. That's happening. That's the incident. That's out of your control. How you handle it is the difference between whether this is going to affect the next 3 weeks or just the next couple of hours.
Yeah.
And you had your self-care regimen, which you got a haircut. You felt comfortable bawling openly in front of your hairdresser, which is a beautiful thing.
She's also got a lot of kids, so it was helpful.
Yeah, she gets it. I do the movie thing myself. Like, that's what you almost did. Yeah. The movie thing is big for me. My other thing is I'm a musician, so I will sit in the back and I'll just play guitar for half an hour, and that helps me feel better. And then, you eat alone, and for some people that may not work for them. That may make them feel worse, but you got to know it. And I think it's so impressive that you had the incident and then you knew what to do. You're like, I'm going to do A, B, and C. And by the end of it, you feel better.
Also, I cried a lot, which I think it was, not helpful. Like, I keep getting choked up today, even thinking about it, even though like we repaired, and like, I'm just like, I hang on to emotion a really, really long time. So like today it was just like, still feeling it. And I think giving yourself the grace to like, let that come out and to feel that is also kind of important too. This is a thing that we're the generation of parents with like little kids now, like that tell them like, it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel your feelings. Like, nobody told us that. And like, I often feel like embarrassed to cry. Like, I feel it's especially in front of anybody else, but like giving yourself the luxury of feeling those emotions fully, I think is super beneficial too. Yeah.
And it's okay. I mean, and I say that to guys who have an even harder time with it. I mean, we have a hard, I'm a fairly in touch. I'm air quotes for people who aren't watching this.
Think about it. Like, forget about your air quotes. The fact that you as a man are even thinking these things is like your leaps and bounds beyond a lot of.
But the thing is, you feel it. You feel it. And, all the guys out there are feeling it.
Yeah.
And they're feeling it even, they're feeling lonely because they don't have their kids for a larger amount of time and they want to, or like, there's all these ways in which, I think guys, especially single dads, especially come at it, they have a harder time in other ways because often you have less control and often you have less contact and you even have fewer tools to help you handle it because you get a lot of fuck'ems from their best friends.
And like, that's an interesting point because my friend and I talk about how she's also a single mom, how men never think that anger is an emotion. Like, that is you all feel probably most quickly or most easily but it's equally an emotional response that you're having.
I mean, this is a topic that will come up again and again. So, I don't think we need to solve every problem right now. But what I would say is I feel best having this conversation with you. Like, we talk about this and I feel better. And, that's proof is in the pudding right here. This conversation the two of us are having is definitely making me feel better.
Yeah. And I almost cried twice. So I think I'm getting back.
I got teary-eyed too. You can't see because it's so pixelated and what we're looking at each other. But, those little like translucent pixels in the corner of my eyes, those are
Sparkle?
My eyes tearing up.
No, it's true. I feel better too. I always feel better when I talk to you about like the truth of what parents like.
I hate being cheesy about it, but the idea that it takes a village is really true. And I think the work we need to do is figuring out who's in that village. And that's the work we don't always do. And so if you're sitting by yourself, it's something I'm trying to get better at, sitting by myself, feeling like this, make my list, put my list together. Who can I talk to? Make it a longer list so you don't just have two people and then you're one and done.
That's a good, not to derail your very nice wrap up that you're doing here too, but I have
I know.
two kind of really strong go-tos, and they always think, I can't believe I only have two friends. And then like I try to think about all the people that are like not a top, I'm not going to tier them, just like not the top tier friends, but like people I'm friends with, people I really enjoy, but they're just not part of my regular rotation. Like thinking of those people, I'm sure they'd love to be reached out to and asked if they want to go sit in the park with you or whatever.
That hopefully can be a long list. I'm trying to lengthen that list and widen. Sometimes a newer friend is better than an older friend.
Totally.
They are learning about your life, and you can tell that story you've told a million times and it'll be new to them.
It will. It will. Yeah, I totally agree. Like all of this loneliness stuff is going to be true for us as single parents, but also like really true for people like me who are about to have kids that go off to college. And like, if you're not lonely now, you might very well be then. So like,
very soon.
What's your plan? Like having a plan. I just even thinking about it, and having a way to make yourself feel less alone or less bad about being alone. Like most of the time I don't feel bad about being alone. Most of the time I love it. But when I do feel bad, like you need to kind of know how to make yourself feel better.
I love it. I love being alone, and I love it more knowing that I have something on the other side to rely on. Then you can enjoy being alone.
Totally different.
Yeah. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like or a crazy comment. We'd love to hear from you, and see you again soon.